All right, today we're going to start by putting together our knowledge that we have of all the terminologies, what our geometry setups are, and put a little bit of algebra into it. Each time I'm going to be asked you to draw yourself a picture, okay, and in this problem right over here, it says for us to draw, okay, a WY so that Z is a midpoint of it. Okay, so we have our picture that we drew. Okay, in the next setup right here, okay, it told us that WY, okay, has a length, okay, right here of 2x plus 18. Now, WY is the length of this whole thing right here. Okay, and then we look at YZ. Well, YZ has a length right here of 3x minus 1. Okay, but if we look at this right up here, and now is to do a geometry setup right here, and that's where we're going to get our first point right here. If we come up here and we were to solve, okay, what I call my geometry setup, okay, we know right here that WY is not equal to a YZ. You can obviously see that this length right here is half as much as the entire length right up here. So in order to make WY the same amount, I'm going to say, well, let's come up here and let's double the length of YZ. So this right here is going to get our second point. Okay, from there, I'm going to set this up by doing, okay, an algebra setup. Okay, my algebra setup is now substituting in, okay, for WY, substitute in 2x plus 18, okay, in for my WY. Okay, in for my YZ, I have to substitute in 3x minus 1, but in order to make them equivalent, okay, I have to double that other side. So you're going to have two parts here. One, you're going to draw yourself a picture. Two, you're going to have a geometry setup. And three, you're going to plug in the algebra into whatever we have for geometry. Okay, there. And then from there, we go about solving. We have 6x minus 2 equals 2x plus 18. Okay, I subtract 2x from both sides. As I subtract 2x from both sides, I have 18 equals 4x minus 2. Okay, add 2 to both sides. And I'm going to come up here with 4x equals 20. Okay, from there I should be able to divide by 4, and that gave me x is 5. Okay, once I have x is 5, okay, I can look back up here and say, oh yeah, I was asked to find the length right here of WZ. Okay, but the length here of WZ is the same length right over here as ZY. So WZ has an algebra formula here of 3x minus 1. So I'm going to plug in my 5 in for the x that I had before, and I have 15 minus 1, which gives me a length of 14 for WZ. So as we go about looking at this, I had 1 point for drawing a picture, 1 point for writing down the geometry setup, 1 point for putting the algebra in there. Okay, I have 2 points for actually coming up here and solving it for my answer, and then finally 1 point for getting the correct solution when I plug it in. Okay, you can see that this problem right up here has a total of 6 points. That's going to be possible. Okay, but none of this is going to be possible. Okay, if, or at least, okay, the biggest point you're going to have is I got to come up here and I got to show each one of my steps. All right, question number 2. Okay, question number 2, we're looking at what I gave you here, okay, in the picture. I already gave you a picture here, so you do not have to draw it. But what I would recommend you do every time is to put all the information into the picture. Okay, ABE, okay, is 5x plus 3. So I gave you ABE as algebra formula. Okay, if I look over here at CBD, CBD, okay, is 7x minus 1. Now, those two angles are vertical angles. We know that these two angles right here are vertical angles. We know that these two angles, okay, right here are vertical angles. The one thing you have to realize here is that vertical angles, if we remember our geometry setup, that vertical angles are equal to one another. So our geometry setup here is going to be ABE equals angle CBD. Okay, so there's our first geometry setup right there, and that's going to give us our first point. Okay, if we want to come up here and algebraically solve this, okay, we can go ahead and do our algebra setup here next. Okay, our algebra setup is going to get us our next point here, and if we plug that in, we get 5x plus 3 equals 7x minus 11. Okay, so there is our next setup. And finally, we're going to come up here and we're going to solve. Okay, as we solve our equation here, we're going to subtract 5x from both sides. Okay, that will leave us here with 3 on the left, 2x minus 11 on the right. Okay, add 11 to both sides. Okay, we come up here with 2x equals 14. And after dividing here by 2, okay, we come up with x equals 7. Okay, so solving it, okay, is worth another 2 points. And then finally coming up here and creating what we had to do on our last little part, we were looking for angle EBC. Now, EBC does not have an algebra formula in it, but the one thing you got to realize is, since we knew that x was 7, we should be able to plug in to this little x right here. So we have 7 times 7 minus 11. So 77 minus 11 is 66. So both of these angles right here are 66 degrees because vertical angles have the same measurements. Okay, but when you come over here and you look at linear pairs, we know that this line right here is 180 degrees. And since this part right here was 66 degrees, if we take 180 and subtract 66 from it, we should be able to come up with the solution for EBC. Okay, and that right there is going to come up with 114 degrees. So we have 114 degrees for angle EBC. All right, so again on this one right here, unlike on the last one where I gave you a picture here on the last one, okay, you were able to put stuff in there. On this one right over here, you're going to have to start over here again, okay, and do something like we did on the first one where you're going to have to draw a picture. Okay, as we draw this picture here, okay, the thing that we're going to need to know is BC is an angle bisector. So the first thing you have to know is, do you know what an angle bisector is? So when I look at angle ABD, okay, and I draw an angle bisector up here, okay, I know that an angle bisector splits an angle in half. Okay, and I have a ray right there, ABC. ABD is bisected by ray BC. Now, as I go about putting the stuff in the picture right over here, I know that I was given that here ABC is, okay, 10x minus 21. So in the picture, I'll put 10x minus 21 in for the angle. Okay, CBD, okay, this angle right over here, CBD is 7x plus 9. Okay, with all that information right there, I'll give you 1 point, okay, for drawing yourself a picture. Okay, that says picture right there. I'll give you 1 point for coming up here and writing down the geometry setup. Okay, in this geometry setup here, I'm going to go to full screen here. Okay, in this geometry setup right over here, we knew that angle ABC was equal to angle CBD. That's our geometry setup here. Okay, they were equal because an angle bisector, okay, splits an angle in half. So that's our first point. Okay, in our second point here, we're going to come up here and we're going to do the algebra setup. And remember, make sure you organize your work, show your steps. Okay, as we do our geometry setup, okay, our algebra setup, all we're going to do is in for ABC, we'll put, okay, that 10x. Okay, what was it here again? Let me slide up. I lost track of 10x minus 21. 10x minus 21. That's what ABC is. Okay, and CBD is 7x plus 9. Okay, there's our next point. Okay, going about solving. Okay, remember we want to get our algebra on the same side. So in order to do that, I'm going to get my variables, okay, on the same side here. So I subtracted, okay, that's 7x from both sides. Okay, that cancels here on the left. Rewriting, I have 3x minus 21 equals 9. If I add 21 to both sides, I'll have 3x equals 30. And after dividing by 3, I have x equals 10. So as I go about looking at, again, how am I going to grade this? Okay, I have 1 point right here that I had for my geometry setup, 1 point for my algebra setup, 1 point for my picture. Okay, I went about solving it, okay, showing my work. Not just getting an answer, but actually showing the work gives me 2 points. I then asked for the entire angle right here, ABD. Okay, I can plug that x into either one of these equations. If I was to plug x into the 7 times 10 plus 9, I would get angle CBD to be 79 degrees. Well, angle ABD is going to be 2 times 79 degrees. So my answer that I come up with is 158 degrees. Okay, another point for the final answer. All right, last one that I have here. Now on this last one right here, you're going to again need to know the terminologies before you even go about solving it. Okay, if I had an angle, okay, right over here, angle A, let's say, here's angle A, and it's not drawn very well, but there you go, there's angle A, and angle A is 10x minus 8. And I draw another angle right over here, angle B. Angle B is 19x plus 14. Okay, the first thing that I need to know right now is angle A and B are supplementary to one another. Okay, so I need to know what supplementary meant. And if you remember back to my dumb mnemonic device about supper and complementary angles, okay, you should remember that a supper you need a bigger meal. So when you take angle A and angle B and you add them together, you should come up with a larger number, not a smaller one. So they should add up to 180 degrees. So there is my first step. My second step that I have is then plugging in the algebra. Okay, the algebra right up here tells me that these two angles, I gave you angle A. Okay, so we'll put this one right here. This one was in red. Okay, so I have 10x minus 8. Okay, this second one right here, which I'll put in black, angle B, okay, is 19x plus 14. You add those two together and you know that they both have to come up to be 180 degrees. Okay, so there is my second point. Okay, now it's a process of going about solving. Okay, we're going to combine like terms over here. So we got 29x. Combine like terms right there. We get plus 6 equals 180 degrees. After subtracting 6 from both sides. 29x equals 174. Okay, if I divide by 29, okay, I get x equals, and you can double check me on this one, but I think I'm doing this in my head. Okay, I think I'm going to come up with, okay, 106. You can tell me tomorrow if I came up with that wrong. All right, so I have 2 points right there for solving it. Okay, I then come over here and I look at, I wanted angle A. Okay, well, plug in that 6 into the x, and I have 60 minus 8, which is a 54-degree angle. My last point. I hope that explains how the algebra and the geometry are going to correlate together. Okay, if you have any questions tomorrow, please ask as we go over a couple of these. We may have a couple entrance or exit quizzes that have some algebra in them eventually, but we will practice a lot more of these before something goes in the grade book. This is a lot of what you're going to see this year, is it's not just going to be memorizing definitions like we've been doing for the last couple of days. Okay, so do take this seriously. If you have any questions, make sure you advocate for yourself in class so that if I do put up some questions for you to do as you walk into class, or in this case, I put them up in the Google Meet, you do not struggle as we go through. Hope that explains things. I will see you later.